I have a little sister called Emily, and she wants to do finance at the moment. She's in her final year of high school. But at the same time, she's heard it's a very male-dominated field. And when she asks me, do you think I'll be treated fairly? Sometimes I'm not quite sure the answer. We need to make sure, and we need to empower women in these circumstances from a young age to make sure that we are able to give them the opportunities that they deserve and ensure that we have people in these companies from female backgrounds. In order to reach this goal, we need to do three key things and answer three key questions. First is that we really need to understand why the gender imbalance exists specifically in the asset management industry. Second is we need to understand how we can encourage the recruitment of women into this industry from an early age. And the third is how we can support and maintain and retain female employees within this industry specifically. What is our strategy in this case? Our strategy is two parts. The first is Mackenzie Learn, which will create early awareness of asset management. And the second is Mackenzie Distribute, which will evenly rotate all junior employees within their divisions to ensure that there is equitable and fair distribution of workload to ensure that no employers are being treated unfairly with the distribution. The impact of this will be threefold. The first is we're going to increase the amount of female applications to these asset management roles by 27.8%. The second is that we're going to improve the work life or the employee satisfaction of females within these companies by 14.7%. And thirdly, it's going to have a cost of $3.6 million over the next 5 years. But the first question we need to answer is why is there a gender imbalance within the asset management industry specifically? And to what we understand, Mackenzie is a leader in this field, with 30% of its investment employees being from female backgrounds. And that's 2.5 times the standard share across the asset management industry. But we see there are four key barriers that may that may currently be preventing this growth. First is we need people with qualifications in asset management. Second is there must be early awareness of this as a career. The third is there must be an opportunity to apply for asset management. And finally, there must be a decision to stay and retain within the asset management industry. As we can tell, these two are not an issue in this circumstance for the reason that 59% of women are university students in Canada, and secondly, they make up the majority of students enrolled in business programs. Similarly, Mackenzie is doing an incredible job at the moment with creating opportunities for women at universities specifically, with its Women in Asset Management program at Ivy Business School, and internships and mentorships within this program that it provides. However, what we see is we need to focus on these two areas. Firstly, an increase in awareness at the early stage, and secondly, it's in terms of increasing retention within the industry. So, what are the issues that we face specifically within early awareness? Because whilst there are some programs which exist at recruitment level, they only occur later in a university degree. They occur within the second year when they begin to recruit for the Women in Asset Management program. And that's problematic because many people may not have time to discover they want to be interested in asset management yet. And given that it's merely a subsector of the finance industry, it's difficult to learn at an early stage without support about these industries and whether you're interested or not. That's why we think that it's important that we really go into the high school territory. Whilst it's the case we support students at university, we think that one way of increasing our retention and increasing our awareness of people to join the asset management industry as a whole is to look into high school and help them discover what they're interested in the first place. But that's not the only issue we face. The other issue that Mackenzie faces is that they struggle to support and deeply retain many female employees. And there are broadly three sets of reasons why we think that's the case. First is the gender bias and stereotyping within many workplaces. The second is the disproportionate impact on work-life balance. And thirdly is the lack of female leadership and role modeling in many of these roles. Within these, we think that Mackenzie is doing a relatively strong job in a few of them. The first one that they're doing a relatively strong job with is the work-life balance programs which they currently have, with strong maternity support and top-up payments on top of the government payments which exist. And secondly, we would say that the gender bias within the workplace, there have been commitments from the firm in terms of providing resources to try and mitigate this. However, we think that there are some biases which are harder to counteract than others, and we think that one of those is that often women within these firms are given more administrative tasks because of this gender bias within the research reports that we've been given. And that's, I think, something that's particularly difficult to monitor in many of these cases. And so we think that it's important there's some form of way of making sure that that doesn't happen, because that may be potentially career limiting in the future. So, given that we know that we need to target people at an early age, how can we begin to do that?
Thanks, Toby. As Toby has just said, Mackenzie is standing at the forefront of this industry in empowering women and helping other women mentor others and pass on the knowledge to create a cycle of perpetual empowerment. Now, how do we raise empowerment, how do we raise awareness of this industry towards an earlier and younger age base, specifically high school students, beyond what Mackenzie is currently doing in the workforce and university to increase early exposure? Introducing Asset Management Aware, where we'll be sponsoring clubs and societies to increase awareness of asset management and increase potential exposure to opportunities within this industry. We're mainly targeting two key bases of individuals. First, female students who are currently interested in finance and are a part of a variety of clubs and societies, or individuals who are not quite exposed to business career opportunities and are not sure what finance and asset management really entails. Let's take a look at our first target audience. Female students interested in business. What Mackenzie can do is that they can sponsor business and entrepreneurship clubs and societies in order to raise further understanding of what asset management looks like, and empowering students who initially already have an interest in finance to step beyond that and look into other practical opportunities. Specifically, Mackenzie can foster networks with industry professionals and opportunities such as case competitions, so such students who are interested in finance can utilize their skills and demonstrate the talent within big companies like Mackenzie. Moving on to our second target base, female students who are not exposed to business careers and opportunities and are not quite sure what the asset management industry field really looks like. What Mackenzie can do is that they can sponsor non-business clubs, for example, maths societies, science societies, and leadership societies across secondary schools. As a result, Mackenzie can hold keynote events and speaker events within the schools in order to introduce students to business careers and further opportunities down the line. Now that we've taken a look at what we're going to do with these programs, where can Mackenzie actually expand to? Let's take a look first at choosing a city. We've taken a look at major cities across Canada such as Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary, and taking into account key considerations such as school density, awareness, availability of Mackenzie offices, as well as a strong interest in business, asset management, and entrepreneurship. We believe that it is very viable for Mackenzie to start off expanding these programs into Toronto. Whilst we believe that Montreal, Vancouver, and Calgary has shown a significant development in interest in business and has high school density, we foresee this as further expansion in the future and will initially begin in Toronto and expanding in the future. So now that we've chosen our city, what types of schools can Mackenzie actually choose and tap into? We've got three main criteria that we've chosen. First, schools with high female student population that Mackenzie can further empower and further educate regarding the financial industry. Second, schools with a variety of clubs and societies that Mackenzie can establish these programs in. And third, schools with a growing interest in business, so that the actual student population is interested in what Mackenzie is bringing to the table. As a result of this program, we foresee that by 2025, there will be 20 programs established on an annual basis and approximately 980 clubs and societies reached by Mackenzie in the long term by 2029. Moving to the second part of this strategy, we're looking at establishing a women's finance program that will hold a 4-day shadowing program throughout the year to enhance exposure into asset management and help guide high school students in choosing both the career paths and the degrees in university. This program will be in 6 stages. First, a student networking session. Second, introductory presentation. Third, shadow divisions. Fourth, a women's lunch together. Fifth, a stock pitch competition to see talent. And finally, mentor assignment. Now, introducing a female student who might be interested in taking part in this program, but she's not quite sure what degree she's aiming for or she's looking for in university. Let's see what our Women's Finance Academy actually offers her. The morning session is comprised of 3 key components. First, individuals connect with like-minded female high school students in a very casual networking session at the very beginning of the event, so that they're able to understand other similar students in their cohort with similar interests and might be keen on understanding and further connecting in the future. Second, students will progress onwards to attend an introductory presentation introducing life and work at Mackenzie, and asset management. Finally, students will closely shadow analysts in the 16 different divisions within Mackenzie on a rotational basis. They'll be randomly allocated to one of 16 different divisions, and they'll be shadowing the analysts who will be conducting daily financial tasks as well. Moving to the afternoon session, this will further be comprised of 3 key components. First, students will start off with lunch with current Mackenzie employees, women, and they'll be able to hear more about their experiences, about work culture, and the daily tasks that they're undertaking within Mackenzie. Next, students will progress onwards towards a stock pitch competition, where students will compete with each other individually or in teams with a $500 prize to the winning students, so that they can further demonstrate their talent in front of a panel of industry professionals and Mackenzie employees. Finally, students will be paired with mentors who can provide them with consistent support as they choose the degree and further on in the future as they're considering the workplace. Now that we've taken a look at how we can enhance early exposure, how can we make sure that the employees in Mackenzie will be able to further continue with this, with their work, and so that women are not only empowered at an early stage, but also into the future and retained with this asset management field?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jessie. So the key points that we want to address here is we want to make sure that once we've got these people, got women into asset management industry, and make sure that we can retain them in the long run. So let's just have a little recap to look at what the issues were that Toby addressed at the start. So first, women were not aware about asset management as an area of work, and since there were a few avenues for interaction, we thought we should address this. And so to do this, we made sure that there were school engagement programs. However, there was a second issue, which was women did not feel supported to apply for the Mackenzie programs. And so, since there was little incentive to apply in the first place, we ensured that with the Women's Finance Academy, they would understand what they would be doing in the workforce. Then the third issue which was identified, which was retention, was once the women are employed, there's the high turnover rate. We want to make sure that there's enough support in the workplace to prevent this turnover rate, and this is what we need to address now. So to effectively take action, Mackenzie must create a strategy which involves ways to increase retention rates within the company for these female employees. And so this comes under 2 main key areas. First is opportunities for development, and second is exposure to senior leaders, so there is this learning and progress in their employment. And so what we've realized is that Google is a great case study for a way to create this development at an early stage. And this is through the rotation model. They use the rotation model in their program called Jmucc, which made sure that employees were rotated through different fields and within different teams to make sure that they had greater engagement and greater motivation. And it is seen as being important for reducing turnover rates, as there's a 29% greater retention in companies who do this rotation model than those who do not. And so revisiting these issues, we need to make sure that we can figure out ways to have strategies which will be able to ensure that these women feel they have this development support within their network. And so what we've come across is that the rotation within the team will be the greatest way that we can ensure this career progression and development by making sure that they have greater learning capacity, and also there's going to be great scalability within different workforces. And so what we suggest is that since currently the main issues in the workforce for women that they're facing is that they're not being given difficult enough roles to prove themselves. There's a lack of development opportunities and ways to meet these senior people, and they're being lumped with a lot of administrative work, and there's little capacity to go for these promotions because they don't have this work experience. And so what we suggest we do is we reinvent the way that women are exposed to work in the workplace. So currently how it works is they'll go to different teams. They'll not be able to work in the areas of interest because they're not rotated through the different roles within the team. And they're lumped with a bunch of administrative work. There's no meeting of senior people. And as a consequence of that, there's no real incentive for them to retain within the company. However, with our new strategy, well, because they'll be given roles around the different teams, they'll have connections with senior people which are being given feedback. There'll be leadership and financial positions given as a mandate to be spread within the team, and they'll be working in different capacities. They'll be able to stay within the company and increase their retention rates in the long run. And so now let's have a look at how this program will actually work. So as it currently stands, new employees are placed within their graduate rotation team for around 6 months, and then this is a 2-year program. However, what we're suggesting is that within these teams, the individuals are rotated within different roles and trained by the different people, where they'll be able to hold these roles for around 3 months each so they can develop their skills in that time. And at the end of the rotation, they'll have a feedback and advice given to both to the workers and to the company from the workers. And as a consequence of this, they'll be able to develop their skills. They'll be able to have less time allocated to administrative tasks and great interaction with the senior team, resulting in a 14.7% increase in satisfaction and a 6.2% reduction in turnover rates. So, Brandon, could you run us through the numbers, please?
Thanks, Savis. Hypothetical strategies are great, but implementable ones are even better. So let's dive into the numbers. Mackenzie rolls out this strategy across a 5-year time span, marked by 3 quick wins that we think can boost their momentum and drive the strategy to even higher heights. Firstly, the launch of the first Women in Finance Academy in the middle of 2025. Secondly, at the start of 2026, we're going to start expanding beyond the Toronto office and start looking towards places like Montreal and Vancouver. And finally, the launch of Mackenzie Distribute at the end of 2025, which we think is a really great way to encourage retention and a really scalable way to do this across all the different offices. Mackenzie achieves a couple of key financial goals and social goals through this. We got given 2 key KPIs at the start of this case. The first was to improve employment, to improve recruitment, that is, to attract more female employees into the industry. And the second was to improve retention. That is, when female employees come into the industry, they want to stay, they want to learn, and they want to have a long career at Mackenzie. So firstly, with regards to recruitment, across 5 years, we partner with 980 student clubs and societies and run 300 sessions across the 5 years, with 45,000 students across 5 years involved in these programs. And when we took a look at the 2029 summer internship application as a proxy, we saw a 27.8% increase in the number of females who applied to these roles. Second, with regard to the costs, we do understand that there are some costs to swallow here. In particular, the clubs and societies sponsorships, the costs of running the Women in Finance Academies, designing the rotational programs, and the designated training sessions within these rotational programs as well. And finally, let's look at retention. We created a proprietary employee satisfaction index that weights a couple of the different things that employees care about based on an article by Forbes. That's career progression, transparency, salary, and work-life balance. And we think that, and through our calculations, we improve people's career progressions because women are exposed to a different variety of tasks and learning experiences rather than being dumped administrative work that kind of limits their growth. We improve transparency because there's a dedicated feedback session throughout this program which helps them tailor their learning experiences. And we also improve work-life balance because sometimes women and employees in general may get dumped with, a manager who's particularly strict or hardworking or just dumps them a lot of work. We think that through this rotation, when they rotate through management, they're able to overcome this. And this leads to a 14.7% improvement in female juniors' satisfaction and a 6.2% reduction in employee churn. Mackenzie has done a really incredible job so far at empowering women and attracting them to come work in the asset management industry. As we can see from the almost 30% female workforce rate compared to the industry average of around 12%. But we think what that means is that they have the opportunity to drive innovation in the market even further into tomorrow and drive into a future of diversity and inclusion so that people like Toby's sister and millions of other women around the world can really view asset management as a place to go into and a place to stay. Thank you, and I'd love to open the floor to any questions.
Alright, we'll now begin a 10-minute Q&A session.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk through like the number of clubs and programs that we're going to run, and I think that the main thing that we're going to do with these clubs is we want to have like an introductory session. That is, you send an employee into the club. You send an employee to the school to have a talk about asset management and kind of give an introduction almost to the Women in Finance Academy. So we're going to roll this out gradually, partnering with 50 clubs in 2025 across to almost 1,000 by 2029. And we think that's going to go hand in hand with our expansion across their different offices. But sure, let's talk about 2029. We think that given Mackenzie's 30% female employee rate, we think that that's quite feasible to be able to do that. And in particular, you can also hold joint club events between different industries, between different schools and which are kind of like local. And I think that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Can you develop a little bit on the 14.7% improvement satisfaction that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So with regards to retention, we based this on a Forbes article which kind of listed the main things that employees care about in their job in terms of like their employee satisfaction. That was career progression, transparency, so kind of being able to communicate with leaders in their team and be able to have kind of transparency in terms of promotion, and then pay and work-life balance. Firstly, addressing pay, like that's not something that we're going to address, but we kind of estimated a 30% improvement in career progression, and that was for two reasons. I think the first is when we kind of talk about sponsorship for promotions, and that was kind of an issue that the case pointed to us, was the fact that women are often over-mentored but under-sponsored, and we kind of pointed that to two reasons. The first was that just systemically, there are some systemic biases which mean that women are given more sort of administrative work. So we think that by kind of rotating within the team, so you might rotate within different subsectors from like mining to infrastructure, et cetera, or you might rotate between like different business functions, so like valuations, like drafting up reports, origination, that sort of thing. So we saw a 30% change in career progression just because we think that it will allow them to A, meet more senior leaders who could potentially sponsor them, and second, develop the sorts of skills that would allow them to kind of step into leadership positions. Second, with regards to transparency, we thought that the feedback process was really important just because we think it's important to kind of continue to develop the program and the way that's tailored to people's needs. And finally, work-life balance. You might get kind of dumped into a team or work with someone who's particularly strict or who kind of makes you work those really long hours. We think that a rotational program allows you to really ease into Mackenzie and ease into a team that really works for you.
And just a note on the index as well, we would say there are other ways of, I guess, judging work-life balance and satisfaction, but we think this is directional at least and covers most of the bases.
I do agree that when it comes to high school, there is I think of back in there is a lack of knowledge of what's out there. However, between the end of high school and entering the workforce full time, there is a gap. So there's like I'm going to say 2 to 4 year gap in between. So has any thought been given to how to retain the high school students that have shown interest for asset management?
Yeah, so I think on this, we understand that there is obviously perhaps a gap between people in high school and then when they go into industry and graduate.
Right.
But we see that the majority of Mackenzie's programs, so the Women WAM, Women in Asset Management, which provides mentorship, internships, like events about asset management at the university, is the bridge which I think currently exists and is relatively successful. So what we see as the gap is getting people to go into these programs in the first place and helping people discover that they want to do it first. And so that's why we've prioritized high school first, as a funnel to get into these existing programs.
Thank you. And just adding on to what my colleague Toby has talked about, in our Women Finance Academy, the last step is that, sorry, next slide please, is that Mackenzie will be pairing students with mentors in the long term so that they can support them not just for choosing their degree plans, but also guiding them towards university and the workforce in the future. So therefore we'll be establishing these mentoring programs to enhance long-term connection so that such gaps as the ones that you've mentioned can be adequately addressed. Thank you.
Let me answer all my questions.
If I have a last one.
Yep. Time.
So it says that there's a gender bias in the industry. There's a lot of focus on the hard skills required for the job, and you're appealing to that. What about the soft skill aspect, which is I think really important for the women in the finance industry, and it's more. Have you thought about it? More about like the soft skills required or appealing to that in the strategy.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of the soft skills, I think that soft skills are complex and so they rise across a variety of teams and sectors. And so I think that's partially dealt with within our rotation program. So when you're within a different function of a team, soft skills you need to develop are different. The issue that we see at the moment is if you're with a manager who sees you in a particular way or they have a bias, you might just be placed in a position where you only get to develop one thing. You don't get to do the things or learn the soft skills that you really want to. And so we think that under our rotation program, you have the ability to equally learn these different soft skills and hard skills together.
Okay.
Alrighty then, the Q&A is now up. Thank you delegates and thank you judges for your participation. I will now ask everyone to leave the room so we can start preparing for the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. No problem. I got you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Axel, and I will be your timekeeper for the day. I will show you your warning signs when there are 10, 5, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds remaining. It'll look like this. Once the 10 seconds countdown is up, I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately. Afterwards, a 10-minute Q&A answer period will follow. I would like to remind you that all teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A period. Audience members, we ask that you please place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and Q&A period. I will now let the judges introduce themselves. Once they are done, you may begin your presentation and the timer will start. Judges?
Hi, I'm Karina Milan. I'm a senior risk manager at Scotiabank. I've done some case competitions in the past, so good luck today.
Hi, I'm Gaelic. I'm a wealth advisor at National Bank Financial. Good luck, Tom.
Thank you.
I'm Thomas Gatsina, senior advisor at National Bank Investment.
My name is Bernard Ducroix. I'm a senior manager at IG Wealth Management. So good luck.
Thank you.
Mackenzie Investments is one of the largest asset management firms in Canada. And today, they're facing a challenge as to seeing that much of the wealth is being transferred to the hands of women, given that the fact that we have longer lifespans and we are holding much of the wealth. And therefore, with this challenge, it comes with an opportunity to be one of the leading firms within finance to find an innovative solution to increase female representation within the workforce. And this is why we're here today. And we believe that the HER strategy is the key to this. Next, we'll dive into I'm not sure if this is working apart. Next, we'll dive into the team. Hi, I'm Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ayushi.
Hi, my name is Mahita.
And I'm Oman.
And with that said, we'll dive quickly into a case overview. First, taking a look at the situation, we found that Mackenzie Investments holds around 203 billion total AUM. Female representation in Canada is growing worse, with the global average at 12.5%, and Mackenzie together provides women with top-of-the-line benefits. We found that Mackenzie currently invests a ton into their benefits, and that there isn't much to expand there. However, we've identified 3 key objectives. To first, satisfy the increased consumer demand for women asset managers. Second, utilize data to improve our customer interactions. Really quickly, I don't believe this is our most recent.
This was the one sent at 31. After, it was the latest one that was available to me. This is what I have.
Okay. Sorry, it was just like different on our end. Okay. And then our key question here is, how can Mackenzie Investments recruit, mentor, develop, and grow female asset professionals throughout their careers? So starting with the HER strategy created by women plus Iman for women, and diving into harnessing talented women, we're going to have really innovative partnerships. E for empowering rotational programs, where we invite newly graduated graduate students into taking a look at what does life look like within Mackenzie Investments. And then lastly, 3, rewarding sense of community, implementing affinity groups as well as a reverse mentorship program. With that said, let's dive into our strategy. First, we'd like to give you a strategic analysis. On the left-hand side, you'll see a couple of ideas that made the chopping block, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see our strategies. We first considered an on-site daycare. First, we saw that this was very cost-intensive and it would take a long time to roll out. Second, our digital skills platform. This seemed very cost-intensive and it would take a long time to roll out. And then third, increased benefits. We saw that Mackenzie Investments already provides top-of-the-line benefits and there wasn't much to expand here. On the right-hand side, you'll see our rotational programs. It builds upon an existing program that's rotational for undergraduate students, so it's cost efficient. Second, you'll see a partnership with business professional women. Here, we'll get access to talented women, as well as benefit from the nonprofit tax write-off, remaining cost efficient. And then our women affinity groups to focus on that retention, on building that community, and reduce those turnover rates. Next, I'll pass it off to Ayushi to dive into our HER strategy.
All right, let me give you a very clear picture of the strategy that you can remember throughout our presentation. Now, to understand the strategy, we have to understand our key objectives. In this case, we were tasked to 1, recruit talented women to become asset manager professionals. 2, mentor, develop, and grow these female asset management professionals throughout their careers. We want to support them throughout. And on that note, number 3, increase retention by addressing gender bias and other stereotypes. With these objectives in mind, our HER strategy, as Ellie mentioned previously, has H for harnessing talented women, E for empowering rotational programs, and R for rewarding community connections. Let's dive in.
So starting with our H part of the strategy, harnessing talented women. First of all, where are all the talented women? I'd like to argue that we're already here. But to actually answer the question, a lot of the talented women are actually stuck in careers where they'd like to pivot out of. So 73% of women aspire to change careers, however, do not do so. And we find that they're locked in these positions, and there are numerous roadblocks. First, taking a look, at the survey taken by Innersight, what do you believe would be the biggest obstacle to your ability to change careers? A lot of them mentioned lack of connections. Here, we like to, entertain the thought of what would McKinsey investments, what would their strategy as to how to increase representation in women look like outside of the firm, right? Second, we took a look at the common roadblocks, and taking out the ability to afford the education, we saw that there was one of the key components is access to career coaching and counseling, as well as access to employer-led training and education, which were two things we want to expand upon within our presentation. And this is why we dive into our first strategy, Harnessing Talented Women, where we will partner with Business Professional Women of Canada, which is a nonprofit organization. This is a very expansive network of talented women who are business professionals, who have careers in real estate, in a lot of industries that hold similar skills to those that would succeed within asset management. And we saw 3 kind of key takeaways here. First, that we would expand access. By developing talent outside of the firm, we would broaden our pool as to, which are talented women who have those transferable skills but are not considering a career in asset management. Second, access to talented women. This specific network has business professionals already, so those skills are transferable, and a lot of them have already settled in their careers, given the fact that they've already had their kids, they've already completed schooling and are pretty kind of set on the path they'd like within their career. So these are more stable individuals, right, that could potentially have a long time within the firm and succeed. And then third, a circular ecosystem. What we're looking to do is by partnering with BPW, there's a way for those within the firm to receive mentorship and expand their network with women across different industries, as well as for women in our firm to step into some of those mentorship roles and perhaps mentor essential candidates for McKinsey investments. With that said, I'll pass it off to Ayushi to dive into our E.
So we're really excited about the E, empowering rotational programs. Essentially, the key idea to this is that we're going to focus on recruiting women after graduate school, so after a B school, MBA. Here, we can increase representation in leadership roles to create a more inclusive workplace. Now, why did we choose women after graduate school? They are a very important target audience for us. Since they have demonstrated leadership abilities, they've been built up a bit. They have work experience. There's diversity in the pool already filtered through by the universities. They have fresh and innovative perspectives, something very important in an evolving asset management industry. And there's long-term potential. Remember the retention I talked about a couple of slides ago. So what is the structure of this plan? Essentially, we are marrying together 2 concepts that exist in a new and innovative way. You might have heard of female development, organizations and plans within companies, and you might have heard of rotational programs, but you've never heard of them together. We are going to create a 1-year rotation program just for women within McKinsey, in which these women will work in 2 boutique departments, such as growth or real estate within the firm. Now, this is going to be helpful because A, the women will feel autonomy when they enter the firm. They can decide for themselves, chat with employees, including women, across different boutiques, and essentially reiterate their positive impression of the company. This builds culture with the women starting off early. We believe that the first impression of our company in these women's mind is a lasting impression. Now, good thing is we have a case study to back up the benefits of such a program. Capital One has a financial rotational program, and Capital One has good rates in terms of retention. They have equal gender balance in their company in the moment, and their rotational program includes things like financial planning and analysis, risk management, and commercial banking.
Essentially, we will help the women enter the company with grace, with confidence, and with exposure, ultimately leading them to go into leadership positions later on and helping McKinsey be a very women-positive company. I'm going to hand it off to Mahita now for the next leg of our strategy.
Thank you, Ayushi. And so now, to talk about what it is, mainly retention. We want to reward our community connections that we're building so that women feel empowered and sustained in the environment that they are in. And how we plan to do that is through one key initiative, affinity groups. Through affinity groups, we want to create that community for McKinsey investments across all 16 boutique banks so that they feel supported in the environment that they are in. We have initiatives already like McKinsey Together, which includes a lot of things that you see on this board: roundtable discussions, monthly meetups, skill building workshops. But the fact of the matter is that we need to consider 3 data points that increases our encouragement to follow this path. And those would be the fact that gender diversity allows for increased profitability, with McKinsey and Company in 2020 reporting how that companies with more women in leadership are able to have like a 21% more likely output on profitability. Compared to that, with retention through activities such as mentorship, we're able to generate from Anita Borg how that mentors in tech, as an example for comparable, are able to generate 77% more likely to actually retain themselves in their jobs. And following that, diversity as a whole improves financial performance. A 2015 McKinsey article demonstrated how the companies in the top quartile for gender diversity were 15% more likely to have financial returns above the industry mean, which is putting them at the top of the scale. And so the key takeaways I would like our judges to meet and remember is that a woman in finance affinity group across the board for the 16 boutique banks is going to support women to be able to have that career growth that they need, support them to foster this inclusion, build that community in a male-oriented or dominated space so that they're able to have themselves be McKinsey investments. And to the next slide, please. I mentioned affinity groups, a woman in finance, but what are we doing to separate ourselves from these roundtable discussions, these workshops, what McKinsey Together already has as an initiative platform? We want to present to you a reverse mentorship. Why dominate the space by putting women with women, men with men, when we have the opportunity to put a male-oriented space, men in power, with women who want to reach that space? And we have data to support this. Being able to put retention into the main space. We can see a 25% higher retention in companies with mentoring programs overall. But our specification here is to empower women. And the way that we want to do that is to have them wanting to stay in the roles that they have. And to do that, we want to see 15% higher employee engagement, as we've seen through an article from Anita Borg, ensuring that companies with reverse mentoring are able to have that increased output. And in real life, we have this program of mentorship, reverse mentorship, women teaching men teaching women. In the real workspace with places like Goldman Sachs with their 10K women, places like Lean.org's Mentor Her program, and then Forte Foundation's Men as Allies, Accenture's Men as Allies, Microsoft's Allyship. All these programs in different industries are able to provide you with gender diversity and equity and equality through having this reverse mentorship platform. So we're going to promote those open dialogues so that women are able to receive mentorship from men in power, but men in power, the ones who are in leadership right now, are able to see the true concerns of the people that work under them. And in this case, the specification of women that McKinsey Investments wants to see is something we're able to target effectively. So next slide, please, and I'll be passing it off to Iman to go over timeline and financials.
All right, so first I'll go over kind of the rough timeline that we're looking for here. I think the gist of this slide is just that these are initiatives that can get off the ground really quickly. We can partner with universities really quickly. We can start sponsoring organizations relatively soon, and we think that that's going to get our recruitment pipelines up by the end of this year. And overall, as we look into the next 5 years, we really want to see iteration over the program. So for example, if we see that there are people from different career backgrounds that are more interested in switching into asset wealth management, we might want to target those people more. So there's going to be a lot of data analysis here going back over the results of our initiatives so far. Next slide.
All right, so let's quickly look at the risks and mitigations. We have a powerful plan, but it's important to do the planning before. We have organized them into critical risks and non-critical risks, and you'll see that some of these risks are associated with specific prongs of our HER strategy. The first critical risk is resistance to change from leadership and employees. Since this is a cultural shift, we are looking towards making ourselves future friendly given the growing female market. To kind of mitigate this sort of resistance, it's very important to communicate the impacts and incentives. Now, these are on paper as well. For example, the bottom line, every business cares about that, but also the culture of a firm. Second is the risk of failure to measure and track progress. When something is more intangible, for example, how women feel in a firm, it's a little harder to measure such things. And for this, we're going to mitigate using clearly defined KPIs and feedback systems. The gist of this is quantitative and qualitative. Women, we need to hear them speak about how they're feeling. Emotions are a part of this. We see in the workplace many times they leave because of gender bias. And that's not always a number, is it? The third is delayed launch of rotational programs. Since this is a program we're going to be starting up from the beginning, it's very important that we launch a volunteer committee as our mitigation to oversee the process. We're going to get people in the firm excited about it, get them together, crowdsource ideas, and then mobilize. Now for some non-critical risks, the first includes the low adoption and affinity group by employees. Why do we need another group inside the organization? You know, maybe people don't know exactly what it stands for. That's why it's very important to market internally, talk about it, have flyers up in the bathrooms. Those little things actually go a long way. Second is the risk of unintended perception of exclusivity, the reverse racism card that a lot of people use. But this is why it's very important to talk about our diversity and inclusion priorities in general. We're trying to make the firm more diverse because it feels good, it feels right, and it's good for our numbers as well. And the third is inconsistent engagement from external coaches. When we partner up, it's important that we partner up in a solid way. There's some predetermined contracts and agreements so that we can feel security with our partners. And on this rough graph, you will see where these risks fall. Some of them lower in severity, some of them lower in likelihood, some are higher on each of the axes.
All right, and before we wrap, just want to talk over a little bit of the financial analysis that we did. Generally, we think that the strategy is going to be really beneficial for the firm because it involves ramping up headcount and penetrating a underrepresented area that needs wealth management representation. So we think that our investment generally will require about $2 million over the first 5 years in total, pretty low overall, and after that should be a profitable venture as rotational program graduates start to ramp up into very high quality portfolio managers, and they ramp up their book size. We generally projected higher book values for our program graduates because they are targeting specifically a segment of women that is inheriting a lot of wealth from wealth transfers. In long term, we think that this is going to grow above and beyond the existing core business. So we'll wrap up the strategy here. And we have a three-pronged strategy, as we mentioned, harnessing talent from MBA programs and throughout the country as we look for people looking for career switches. Also want to talk about how we're building a great internal culture for women internally, and we think that this three-pronged strategy that focuses on recruiting, developing, and growing our talent is going to be really strong for Mackenzie as we look long term. Thank you.
We'll now begin a 10-minute Q&A period.
I have a question. I have more than one actually. But I saw 73% of women aspire to change careers, and then we link that to the business professional women of Canada. And I was just asking myself, is there a direct link between the two in the sense that, I don't know the Business Professional Women of Canada organization, but isn't that an organization more of like really satisfied women about their careers? So I was just wondering if there's like, if it can really be a pool in terms of those 73% women that aspire to change careers.
Yeah, that's a great question, so I can take this one. I think the Business Professional Women of Canada, the reason as to why we chose them, I'd like to highlight is their kind of acronym work here, which is Women Offering Resources and Knowledge. This is a group within the program that helps women who are looking for those, career pivots and career changes. And I think this organization helps support women throughout their careers. However, it doesn't mean that they're, essentially satisfied as to where they are, right? I think there's always roadblocks faced in terms of how do I mobilize? How do I reach those, leadership positions within my firm? Do I feel completely fulfilled pursuing this industry? So it's a really good network of, some women who are already satisfied in their positions who can give those resources and knowledge to women who are looking to pivot. So that's why we chose kind of this partnership.
Go ahead.
Could you give us an idea of how the costs are split across the different initiatives?
Yes,
Just the overall
absolutely. So we can hop into the appendix here. Roughly, we have relatively low costs for most of the initiatives that we're talking about here in terms of the BPW sponsorship. They host conferences and things like that. That's not an insanely high cost for the business. We also see that as tax deductible. We see sponsoring case competition prizes as a relatively cheap way to attract talent at MBA programs, and different initiatives that we had in mind we think are going to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. I mean, the main cost is really going to be on headcount. So obviously we don't have all the data in terms of how much people are making, but with our rough estimates, assuming the unit economics stay relatively consistent with the firm, as headcount grows, we see that as relatively positive. If we go to the chart here, you'll see that as we look forward, most of the costs are going to be taken up by full-time graduates of the rotational program. So rotational program members are going to be operating at a loss. They're just not going to have the book size to be profitable, but as they stay with the firm, we hope to build a great culture that keeps the firm.
Thank you.
Is that why the cost is so low that we don't see it on the chart, the orange dot?
Right. The investment cost is just so low, yeah.
I have a question on what's the end state, maybe that's not clear, but what's the end state of increasing women in the workforce for that specific company?
Yeah, I think the idea is we increase women in the workforce. This is a relationship-driven business in private wealth management, right? And so women who have a lot of wealth are much more likely to interact with women and advisors. And given that by 2028 we're expected to see women in Canada have more than half the wealth in Canada based on primarily due to passing away of boomer husbands, they're much more likely to switch advisors to a female advisor. I think this has a large number of people switch within a year of their partner passing. So that's where we see the business opportunity. Thanks.
That's a lot of time. Yes. Okay. So you mentioned the success that Capital One had with their 2-year rotation program.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, so if Capital One was successful with the 2-year rotation program, why did you decide that in terms of what you were suggesting it would be a 1-year rotation program, and why 2 boutique departments?
Yeah, I can take this question. So the Capital One case study, it focuses on more undergrads and it gives them 2 years because it takes a longer time for undergrads to build those skills coming straight out of graduation, as well as to decide if a career in Capital One, or whether that be business development or finance, really suit their needs. The reason why we boiled it down to a 1-year rotational program is because we're targeting graduate students, and typically as a graduate student you have kind of an idea as to what career you'd like to go into, and the whole idea is we'd let you choose 2 boutiques under Mackenzie Investments, and then you'd spend 6 months at each boutique. So we thought more of a condensed timeline. You already have a lot of those transferable skills, and this would once again be cost efficient, right? Reducing the length of the rotational program, as well as yield much greater returns. So that's why we chose.
You mentioned in the risks and mitigants, one of the risks being failure to measure and to track your process. So could you give us some examples of those feedback systems that should be used to track that?
Absolutely. So we'll definitely have a couple of our traditional rates on the radar, right? Like things like retention, things like job satisfaction, your typical career KPIs that people track in companies. But it's also really important to us to have qualitative feedback, as I mentioned earlier, specifically since that detects things like bias and stereotyping. So we want to have a lot of one-on-one touch points with the women that we bring on through the graduate program, with the women in the company, and also with women in leadership, since they see a different bird's eye view perspective of the company. So we're going to, through our rotational program and our graduate recruitment program, also implement these one-on-one casual ways to connect with women, maybe comp a coffee, really build that emotional connection with the women, so we have a good ethos for the company and hear things that are beyond the numbers.
I go for last one. In the obstacles you mentioned of ability to change careers, the first one was lack of connection, which I think you addressed, but the second one is I can't take the pay cut. How, like, once you embrace like a career path and then you want to take them out on a different path, how do you address that? Because that's one of the biggest challenges I don't think I've seen.
Yeah, I think this is exactly one of the reasons why we'd like to partner with BPW. Essentially, right, as a lot of women maybe transfer finance roles and you find yourself, starting kind of near like those entry roles, you might face that pay cut. But I think that's why we really want to partner with BPW, because you have a range of women within these fields. You have women in leadership, you have more senior management women, and I think having those kind of models to look up to and see that, the pay cut is just momentarily, right? The success and the book sizes, like Mon mentioned, will increase as long as you kind of stay throughout the career and stay motivated and can see yourself, stepping into those similar success stories as a woman at BPW. So I think that's really why we want to instill that partnership, to set those role models and show that we align with that.
Okie dokie. The Q&A period is now up. Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will now ask everyone to leave the room so we can start the deliberation period. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your deliberations, judges. You'll now have 10 minutes to provide feedback to this team about their presentation. Please do not divulge what scores were given or tell the team if they won the head-to-head matchup or not. I'm going to send the team in now. Well, they're here already. So.
Great job.
Yeah, we can't say that, but they did a very good job. So I particularly like the flash about the high school. Okay, I thought that was a great idea, and overall very nice PowerPoint. And really, the only point that I would say, budget-wise, I thought it was a little bit on the conservative side in terms of maybe
Good afternoon. There are 10, 5, 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining, like so. Once the 10 seconds countdown is up, I will say stop, after which the team must stop talking immediately. Afterwards, a 10-minute question and answer period will follow. I would like to remind you that all teams must present for a minimum of 15 minutes, and all team members must speak during the presentation, but not necessarily during the Q&A period. And audience members, we ask that you please place your phones on silent mode and remain seated in the room for the duration of the full presentation and the Q&A. I will now let the judges introduce themselves. Once they are done, you may begin your presentation and the timer will start. Judges?
Hi, Karina Bond. I'm a senior risk manager at Scotiabank here in Montreal. I've competed in case competitions before as well, so good luck today.
Hi, I'm Felix. I'm a wealth advisor at National Bank Financial. Good luck to all.
Hi, Laurence Cardinal, senior advisor at the National Bank Investment.
My name is Bernard Gray. I'm a senior manager at IG Wealth Management. So good luck.
Mackenzie, you are a global superpower in the finance sector, but currently you're facing headwinds on how you can attract this new growing female talent pool in finance, how you can actually improve and retain your current employees, and how you can find these champions for change. Good day, my name is David, and I'm joined by my teammates Isabel, Carrie, and Julie, and we will present to you how you can actually find growth where it matters the most. So first, we wanted to answer the key question of how you, Mackenzie, can attract and retain your female employees and increase female representation within the industry. With our key strategy of growing internally and externally, we'll find that we'll give you strategies that involve partnership and a new program with a lasting impact of 250 new participants in our leadership development program, a 30% decrease in turnover, and finally a 35% increase in female applicants.
So now let's take a quick look at where exactly Mackenzie Investments is right now. So really, we're taking a look at the industry. We see that a lot more women are gaining financial control. They have currently right now control over 2 trillion financial assets, and by 2028, that is expected to grow to 4 trillion. And so really with that, we see those drivers as females having more higher education, especially within Canada. We see 68% of women pursuing post-secondary education. And that means that even more women are joining the workforce, and also a population demographic change where women are just on average living longer than men, and so they have more of the assets from the inheritance that they gain. And so really with that, we see the industry going more towards having women increasingly having that demand for financial asset management services as they continue to have more and more control. And so really where exactly does Mackenzie sort of play in that? So we know that you are one of Canada's largest asset management firms, and so really right now, although you do have 30% of your employee workforce as female investment professionals, we do want to first notice that the relationship between your advisors and then also the investors. So really, we know that the industry is very much relationship driven, and so really having a strong advisory workforce is what really drives that connection and the service that you can bring then to the investors. So really with that today, where we're taking a look more in terms of diversity and very specifically into the women segment, we want to take a look at how exactly you can then now increase the women representation that you have in your advisory workforce to be partial with the amount of males to really counter with this demand that we foresee in the future. So let's take a look at what exactly that employee life cycle looks like for a woman employee. So really in that recruitment stage, we actually only see in all of Canada that only 20% by women. And so although we do see that there are 56% of university students being women in business, we do see that 25% of those who are in finance are also women. There isn't that many that actually go on into the investment roles. And so when we take a look more now, kind of going onwards, we know that in terms of onboarding, engagement, and specifically for skill development, you do have a lot of initiatives in place. With like an onboarding ambassador program, you have volunteer programs to boost engagement within your organization, boost the culture, and you also do currently have mentorship leadership programs within your organization to help with connections and also help with specifically skill development. However, we do see that women are now over-mentored and not sponsored. And so we really also want to take a look at that deeper down today. And finally, with retention, we also see that women having their own personal lives, trying to find a balance between career and also life, and also being unable and having that barrier towards further career development, we see also a higher turnover rate. So these are the three pieces that we also really want to address moving forward today. So let's take a deeper look into who exactly you are trying to recruit. So we want you to meet Dreamer Jenny. So Dreamer Jenny is currently in her second year, a university finance student in Ontario, and she's looking for a career that is really dynamic. She doesn't want to be doing just admin, day-to-day work. She doesn't want her day to look the exact same. So, and she's also looking for very high earning potential, and she also wants to see clear career progression opportunities for what she wants to go into. So she decides to go into finance, but within asset management, she sees that there are not that many female role models that she can really look up to and see herself be in that position in the next 10 years, let's say. And there's also not that much exposure to the industry and the opportunities that she wants to see in terms of if she goes into asset management, where exactly will she be in those next 10 years in terms of career progression, and also even just seeing someone like her in that higher up position. So really, although she is aware of asset management, she doesn't really consider it because of these perceptual barriers that it's a lot more male-centric and that it lacks that career development. So really today, we want to first ask the question of how can Dreamer Jenny really overcome these perceptual barriers and build up that future female leaders in the early development stages. And then finally, let's take a look at more of that leadership within Mackenzie Investments. So currently, right now, we do know that Mackenzie, as I said before, has those leadership mentorship programs, and they do have a lot of parental and counseling support for upcoming female and women families. And so we do know that there is a lot of that support, but one really key piece that we really want to focus on specifically for today is really that piece of being under-sponsored. And what exactly does that mean? So women have they have mentors, they have people they can go to, but not necessarily people who can give them the opportunities for them to showcase their skills, for opportunities for them to really prove what they're worth and get that opportunity to go higher up in that corporate ladder. And so really, we see that there are not really being given those high-stake projects for that career growth. And really what is really preventing that is the similarity bias in upper management and the lack of it, as we see that upper management doesn't want to just sign off or endorse someone that they don't personally know, they don't personally think is ready. And not all the time is there enough female role models in that to be able to give that to the same women. So really what we see here is upper management is very much hesitant to give sponsors to women because they don't really see that connection. Even if it was a male leader, executive member, they do not see and have that opportunity to really connect and engage with these women in middle management or entering the workforce. And so we really want to finally ask the question of how exactly can Mackenzie upper management really support and give more tangible opportunities to women employees. And I'm going to pass it on now.
Now, Mackenzie Investments, in a 5-year projection, we understand that you have the systems and the leadership to be able to build this culture. And with that being said, it's so much more than just a funnel, but actually a flywheel of how your different types of mentors, leaders, as well as early talent is able to interact with each other. So with that being said, we want to take a look at 2 different types of focuses. One is how your mentorship and your role models are going to take a look at, and then second is building that awareness with your early talent. So first is really being able to take a look at how you're reaching those future female leaders. We understand that there is an opportunity to drive personal growth within the asset management space, and taking a look at different types of things such as being able to have diverse career opportunities, being able to be in a dynamic environment where you're working with different types of clients, different types of goals. But at the end of the day, they need a foundation to get started. So with that being said, Mackenzie Investments is ready to champion that growth because you've had different types of initiatives such as with Ivy, or even taking a look at other charitable investments. And so we want to take the current opportunities and scale it even farther. But what exactly does that look like? To be able to really drive that awareness and consideration with this early talent, we want to understand how we're driving that message of growth where it matters most. And so that's going to be in 2 different types of segments.
First is taking a look at your online channels, so leveraging different types of social media channels such as LinkedIn and Instagram. Not only that, but being in niche communities where these women are aspiring for personal growth as well as those other aspects of achievement. And then secondly, taking a look at in-person perspectives, so not just focusing on something such as an IB program, but being able to expand across that and look at other types of programs where you can leverage your strengths in Western and expand beyond that. And then finally, take a look at workshops and events through our partnerships. With that being said, now that we're able to really start with those touch points and take a look at your in-person as well as online channels, what does that actually mean to reach those communities? With that being said, we want to take a look at how Dreamer Jenny is going to be within those communities, starting with a partnership with something such as Monday Girl. Monday Girl is a North American women's community where you get connected with different types of mentors as well as different types of individual career development groups that has those progressions for people who are early in their career. And so there's three main opportunities here. First is driving different types of touch points. So the nice thing about being in Monday Girl groups or even other communities is having that special membership subscription. So being able to take advantage of their community newsletters and be able to reach people where it matters most. Second is taking a look at power workshops. So the benefit of this is you're able to really sponsor workshops and be in front of women that are starting their career paths, taking a look at things that truly value to them, so things such as sustainable investing, maybe a women's global funds, and all of that. And then finally, taking a look at your networking. So now that you've been able to reach them in terms of consideration, how are you going to put champions within your company into programs such as this and build connections beyond the scope of the network and actually have that advocacy that you can move forward with. With that being said, once you're able to truly do this within your recruitment program, then it's about being able to take a look at the internal perspective. So you have your marketing campaign, being able to leverage different types of features and differences in asset management and how they can truly progress, but taking a look at what that actually looks like on the internal perspective is first being able to expand your streams. We understand right now that you do have an amazing internship as well as 2-year rotational program, but with that being said, the operations management stream currently focuses on IGM. And so opening that to Mackenzie Investments under the Mackenzie Together initiative and focusing on women is really important here. Other key features include having a unique hiring cycle, so being able to leverage that with Mackenzie Together, having day and life simulations online, so being able to see what it looks like being an asset manager for a day or connecting to representatives, and then finally having a recruitment checklist and progress bar to ensure that they're getting from awareness and finally to that application at the end. The key benefits of this is not only are you going to increase that application rate, especially when it comes to taking a look at women and females, but also championing your corporate values, and finally taking a look at scaling your current successes and what that looks like, not just in one program or one university, but on that 5-year transformation. So with that, now that you're able to really drive that awareness and consideration with a marketing campaign as well as these partnerships in niche communities where you're reaching people like Dreamer Jenny, you're able to take a look at the recruitment cycle. But what does that actually look like in terms of retention for your business?
Even though you're able to see an increase in potential applicants and recruits, you still see a headwind in terms of the fact that some of these individuals might leave. So our second strategy will cover how we will actually have a new mentorship and leadership program, as well as increasing your champions for change and overall role models. So first, this main strategy is to try and address this new difficult task gap. So the overarching goal is to create a sustainable and impactful leadership development program that increases representation of women in leadership roles at Mackenzie Investments. So the 4 key stages of this strategy is first, talent identification and project development. Second is mentorship and high visibility projects. Third is how they will actually see their career progression, as well as how they will give feedback. And lastly is how you will measure the strategy and long-term sustainability. So first, talent and mentor identification. So what is the criteria for what makes a champion for change mentor? So first is leadership and impact. We want to see these individuals that already have a high visibility within your portfolios or within your different sectors, and that makes sure that these projects are successfully led. The second is commitment to D&I. I want to go on the fact that, as Carrie mentioned prior, the similarity project, which is the fact that you want to apply and try and sponsor these people that are similar to you. With our criteria for mentors, it's not necessarily that they have to be women, but it's that they have to be committed to that D&I perspective, which means that we want to see that they've already been involved in past initiatives as well as past projects that address this key issue. The third is emotional intelligence and empathy. We want to use measurable assessments such as an EQ score to really try and measure how well they will do in this role. Fourth is mentorship experience. Have they done this in the past? Are we confident that they're able to actually mentor these up-and-coming talents within Mackenzie into new leadership positions? And lastly, do they have that vision and business acumen to really transfer that knowledge forward? In terms of what the program is actually going to look like, the first phase will be the training programs. So you'll establish clear goals with your mentees throughout this leadership program. Then you'll also provide mentors with leadership coaching and tools to align these mentees with what they want to achieve and what these mentors can actually provide. The second phase is high visibility projects. Either individually or in teams, these will be high visibility projects that are on top of their day-to-day tasks, and these mentees will work on strategic, high impact projects that provide visibility and potential starting points for when they want to climb that ladder. And the second is to provide these opportunities to work in teams or, once again, individually. And lastly, ongoing support. The third phase of the program will be how will your mentor actually support throughout this entire stage. So you'll set up monthly meetings to touch point with each other, and lastly, you will encourage mentors to actively sponsor your mentees in the long run. So examples of high leading projects would be leading cross-functional teams, high profile presentations, as well as management critical portfolios that you work together in. In terms of how these mentors will actually benefit and mentees as well. So the main drivers of our strategy is to access these high profile projects for these up and coming talented individuals, to clarify and give actionable feedback to these people that really want to improve within their space and their work, as well as building a sustainable leadership pipeline for future in 5 years and beyond. So what are the mutual benefits between the mentors and mentees? For mentors, you'll see that they will have an increase in overall leadership development. The C-suite, or even those a little bit below, will find that their leadership will actually gain improvement. The second is they'll find a stronger network. They'll be connected to up-and-coming talents, and once these up-and-coming talents will actually be elevated through their sponsorships, they'll find a stronger network. And lastly, they'll increase their overall engagement within Mackenzie Investments. For the mentees, apart from hopefully achieving their career growth, they'll also see an increase in overall skills and knowledge, as well as seeing a new increase in sponsorship. So lastly, we want to address the fact that we want this to be a measurable and long-term sustainable strategy. So in measurement, in both quantitative and qualitative, in terms of quantitative, we want to see an increase in promotion rate for women in Mackenzie, and also we want to see a decrease in overall retention rate, and this is measurable through your new programs, as well as just trying to work with HR. For qualitative, we, as I said prior, monthly touch points, and these monthly touch points will include surveys that you'll give to these employees and these mentees and mentors. How well is it working? And if it's working well, every year we find that you can increase your overall cohort, and you can measure it like that. And in terms of how you can improve in the long run, internally, you'll have your annual program review, see what can you do better, what can you do without. And lastly, you'll include benchmarking with industry standards. Are you being that new superpower and champion for change in increasing your overall retention for employees in the long run?
In terms of implementing these strategies, first off, when it comes to our recruitment strategy, the first key milestone that we will encounter will be midway in 2026 when we establish that partnership with Monday Girl. The costs for this activity also include the potential for new partnerships in the future. In terms of the retaining strategy, we will be identifying talent within the first 6 months of implementation and develop the program shortly after, and we will launch our first cohort already before the end of 2025. We are aiming for capturing around 30% of potential high interest female candidates in the program, and it will go from around 5% capture to 30% capture by the end of 2025. In terms of the quick wins for these strategies, we considered connecting with leadership team on value building, as well as research and finalizing the talent profile, and then building the criteria for high potential role models for these women in industry. And when it comes to the 3 key human impacts of our strategies, first off, we considered that we can get around 40% increase in female applicants in the financial industry, and they will be all high quality. And this can amount to around 500 new applicants over the 5 years. In terms of the program, we have targeted the KPI of developing women and women participating in leadership development programs, and we estimate that we can get around 250 high-quality participants, which is that 30% of the interested females, by year 5. And both strategies target the KPI of decreasing the turnover rate by both improving the company values and standards, as well as overall larger outreach for women.
So Mackenzie, throughout our presentation, we've shown you how you can actually increase your overall recruitment rate, as well as retaining your new recruits, and showing you how this new talent pipeline isn't a pipeline, but it's actually a flywheel. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin a 10-minute Q&A session.
I saw in one of your slides you were mentioning 500,000 for women's financial security charities. So that's something that's one of the ideas that you present in your PowerPoint. And I was wondering, why did you think that would really nourish the goal of having more women become asset managers and join McKinsey? So what's the link between the two?
Yeah, thank you for that question. For that particular slide, what we wanted to take a look at is your current initiatives. So you've done two things that have really set you up for success. First is the 500,000 in terms of the charities, which you've already done. And then second is taking a look at having different types of initiatives and more engaging opportunities to reach early talent. What we see from here and this insight is that now that we have all these opportunities, you can kind of scale it to build different types of partnerships and more niche spaces so that you can reach those talents elsewhere.
Have you thought about us creating our own community, like Monday Women, like rather than partnering with them, for example, building our own? Is that something that you've considered?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take this one as well. The cool thing about Monday Girl is that there's such a major opportunity for you to be able to start working with another partnership to really be able to build that foundation of having a mentorship program. You've done quite well in terms of establishing yourself as a global firm, but with that being said, being able to reach niche communities and have different types of leaders when it comes to being online or building communities in different types of cities is something that you want to be able to continue building. And so starting with Monday Girl and then expanding into having something for yourself and that 5-year projection is the next step that you can take in the future.
Thank you.
In one of the first recommendation, there was an in-person campus outreach, and you focused on 3. Is there a reason why you chose those 3, or is that?
Yeah, I can take this one as well. So taking a look at campus outreach, we evaluated different types of universities, and we know that within Eastern universities in particular, Mackenzie Investments has done a fantastic job getting in front of students. That being said, campus outreach is more than just being in front of students, but also connecting with their different types of programs as well. And so the reason why we highlighted Waterloo, Alberta, as well as Vancouver is because all 3 different programs have respective and niche finance programs that you can leverage. So for example, Waterloo has a quantitative finance and finance exploration program. Alberta and Vancouver also have similar portfolio management types of initiatives, especially for women.
Would you have any examples of the type of marketing? I noticed in your implementation plan, one of the first steps is marketing the different initiatives. So do you have some examples of how we would go about?
Yeah, for sure. If we can go to that slide, I think one of the first recommendation slides that we have. Okay. So we did identify the specific channels that we want to leverage, online and in person. And specifically for marketing, this is where we want to put our focus on at that first initial stage and really put that messaging of the career development and also the opportunities and the reasons why you want to go into asset management and why Mackenzie as sort of that forefront piece in that marketing. So that's kind of the focus of that beginning piece.
Okay, so you're using these in-person and online strategies as the marketing strategies, right? Is that
Yeah, so that's the marketing piece of the overall strategy here to get the early talent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you share the appendix I just saw in terms of the budget and what you worked on?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we did a cost breakdown for both strategies. Is there one that you would particularly be more interested in, or should I just start with recommendation one?
No, start with that,
So
yes.
for recommendation one, the partnership initiative, we estimated some upfront costs. So first off, the branding and awareness campaign that we just talked about, as well as the development of the recruitment platform. And we used a growth rate of 3% to estimate the annual costs, and included a miscellaneous budget on the very bottom in terms of new partnerships arising, or some event logistics, operational contingencies, or additional platform development needed to give more flexibility in the implementation of this strategy. And
So if I read correctly, you're planning roughly 3 million over the next 5 years.
correct, the two strategies combined amount to around a budget of just about 5 million, with the second strategy being based off of the number of participants. So this is an assumption. We assume that there's female employees of interest amounting to around 1,000 female employees, and of which we can capture 5% in the first year, and then around 25% in year 5, who would be willing and high quality participants of the leadership program for the second recommendation. And that cost mostly influences the external certifications that women in finance, or anyone in finance, is usually required to get to work in the field.
Thank you.
Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will now ask everyone to leave the room so we can set up the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Piotr. I'm a wealth advisor at National Bank Financial.
Hi, Laurence Cardinal, senior advisor at National Bank Investment.
And my name is Bernard Scuré. I'm senior manager at IG Wealth Management. So good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You may begin.
Women are an integral part of any business context, and that's exactly why we're here today, to explore a strategy that will help McKinsey Investments cement its position as a leader in women empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Elina, we're Phoenix Consulting, and I'm joined here today by my wonderful team, Alex, Alexander, and Elias, who will now take you through an overview.
Thank you, Elina. Now, we started by taking a look at the industry, and what we see is that the change is driven by consumer demand. As you see, by 2028, more than half of wealth and assets in Canada would be owned and controlled by female consumers, and this number is growing rapidly. Now, along with this, 84% of high net worth females are increasing their demand for female representation in the asset management industry. And a key insight we can generate here is that asset management firms are completely reshaping the way that they recruit and retain employees and to achieve employee parity. Now, your company, which is McKinsey, should be at the center of this discussion. As one of Canada's largest asset managers with over $203 billion in assets under management. Now, you've already given extensive efforts in order to achieve employee parity through the McKinsey Together platform, but there are still some rooms for improvement. And this is exactly why you are currently seeking a creative strategy to recruit, mentor, and empower Canadian women in finance and specifically asset management. Now, to achieve this, we've identified 3 key challenges that we believe will be crucial for your company to overcome. First of all, there's an underrepresentation of women in leadership roles, leading to the absence of role models. Second, there's lack of direct advocacy for women promotion, as women are overhelped but under-sponsored in the company, despite extensive mentorship programs. And finally, there's an absence of measurable impact. Despite current support initiatives, how can we really make sure that these initiatives are giving tangible results? And this leads to the following question. How can McKinsey Investments effectively reach parity in their workforce by attracting and retaining top female talent? And to answer this, we're very excited to be presenting our strategy, where we want you to attract, retain, and assess. Starting with attract, we want you to augment your direct touch points with universities through more on-campus communication with women-led groups. For retain, we want you to retain that top talent by offering reverse mentorship programs that provide direct exposure for women with people in senior leadership positions. And this is not your typical mentorship program. It's, as the name says, a reverse mentorship program. And we're going to go into the details of this in the future. And finally, we want you to assess, because no strategy can actually be impactful unless we can track the impact on every single initiative with every employee in the firm and every applicant for the asset management. This is why we want to integrate tracking measures within your Together platform to ensure this impact. Now, by 2029, this strategy will not only help you answer the question and overcome the challenges, but it will also help you achieve 49% female representation within the firm, as well as a 21% improvement in female employee satisfaction index, and finally achieving an 80% customer satisfaction score. Now with this, I'll hand it on to Elina for the analysis behind the strategy.
Thank you, Elias. Now, we first understand that female underrepresentation at McKinsey Investments comes down to 2 main roadblocks. Those are associated with the challenges in recruitment and retention. Now, the challenge that lies with recruiting junior women employees is not rooted in a lack of available women students. In fact, we find that 59% of university students are women. However, there is still an absence of female employee representation at your firm, as the ratio of men to women within the asset management industry has remained alarmingly stagnant for the past 20 years. Now, when it comes to retaining existing female employees at your company, we find that there is an alarming turnover rate of female investment professionals at a staggering 43% compared to males, whose is only 29%. That comes down to the fact that women are more likely to be assigned admin roles that prevent them from developing the adequate skill set that they need to advance their careers. They face more pressure impacted by family planning, and they are under-sponsored. What that means is that despite the abundance of mentorship programs available at McKinsey, these women employees remain under-sponsored. They are not given the right direct advocacy for their career progression and promotion. Now let's deep dive on each challenge, starting with recruitment. We find that young female applicants are suffering from two key pain points that are preventing them from initiating their careers at McKinsey Investments. First, they are not motivated to apply as they are not exposed to these job opportunities, and the lack of female representation in high-paying senior roles at McKinsey is not motivating them. They will not apply to a company that they perceive to not be gender inclusive. The other key pain point lies in the fact that they fall victim to the confidence gap. Now, what is the confidence gap? Well, it is the phenomenon that occurs when men and women are applying to the same job. Men will tend to overestimate their competence, while women will underestimate theirs. Men will apply to the job even if they only feel like they meet 60% of the requirements. And when it comes to women, they will hesitate to apply even when they are fully competent and they meet all the requirements. So what that means is that the pool of young female applicants is shrinking, not even allowing them to become female employees at your company. Now, when it comes to retain, we analyzed various industry practices on women retention in the industry and evaluated them based on their associated levels of impact and implementation. Those strategies range from reverse mentorship and leadership shadowing programs all the way to internal company social media platforms for gender pledges and equity advocacy. And we found that the optimal strategy for you to capitalize on lies in reverse mentorship. By leveraging reverse mentorship, you will be able to implement an innovative and scalable solution to retain female talent and engage, develop, and better empower them. Now, back onto Elias to delve into the details of our strategy.
Thank you, Elina. Now, in the first step of our strategy, we want you to attract that talent. And taking a look at her persona for today, we're going to take the example of Elina. She's a business student concentrating in finance. And she's well involved in campus initiatives and is currently seeking a summer internship. Now, my colleague Elina has previously mentioned the confidence gap. As you can see, women only apply to jobs when they meet 100% of the requirements, whereas men apply when they meet as low as 60%. And within the recruitment journey, from awareness, decision, application, and results, the most important step is the decision to apply. Now, as you can see here, with even more elaborate statistics from Harvard Business Review, you can see that the specific qualifications of the job and the way that the application is tailored and written affects the possibility of women actually applying. As you can see, the more vague the question is, the less women apply. And the more detailed, the number of women the percentage of women would increase by 20 percentage points. And what this says is, we need to tailor the way we launch our applications, first of all, in a way that's specific, because more detailed language leads to better confidence and more detailed prescriptions to allow women to apply. By reaching out to women through on-campus initiatives, through women-led groups, and crafting recruitment campaigns that avoid ambiguity and focus on clarity, we'll be able to both address the confidence gap and also address the lack of role models. Now let's see exactly what that means. Now, as you can see here, we've selected three main senior leadership women from your leadership, with Kirsty Ashroff, the Executive Vice President, Jennifer Lozzo, and even Leslie Marks, your Chief Investment Officer. Now, we'll be using the power and the image of these three senior women in leadership positions to, first of all, improve women's senior visibility in recruitment phases. So we want your women to be leading the recruitment phase within on-campus recruitments. Now, second, we want to launch live Q&A sessions within on-campus initiatives, again with senior leadership from your women. And finally, we want to showcase internal initiatives to improve employee parity, all three based on use cases from some of the best companies in the world.
Well, now that I've acquired my internship at McKinsey Investments, how can we ensure that I am met with the right opportunities that will help me develop the adequate skill set to eventually join the leadership team and break the glass ceiling? Alexander?
Thank you. That's a great question, Irina. And with that, we'll take you to the second step of our strategy where we will retain by offering reverse mentorship programs. But before we deep dive into the intricacies of our newly recommended mentorship program, allow us to take a quick step back to clearly understand the current situation at hand. Now, as soon as Elena steps into Mackenzie, although we recognize that you have existing efforts and mentorship programs in place to make sure that Elena grows and develops her skill set, we see that there is an opportunity to engage these stakeholders even more. As we see that currently, there exist engagement and communication silos between both newly recruited female talent, just like Elena, and their senior leadership, which again is mainly dominated by males. And a Bain & Company report, which was published 2 months ago, said that mentorship and training have been the fundamental and main accelerators for success to boost female representation, specifically in leadership roles. Now, let's take a look at how exactly are we going to engage both of these stakeholders through a lucrative mentorship model. This is where we recommend that you adopt a reverse mentorship program as the new standard, where entry-level employees just like Elena will engage with senior personnel in a structured, reciprocal learning and skill development method, exchanging insights and knowledge across generations and different experience levels. Now, this will help you unlock key benefits that will drive the skill development of Elena as well as your current leadership team. As first, it will achieve an enhanced employee skill set, as Elena will learn the managerial and practical skills from her direct mentor. Second, it will accelerate her career progression and growth, as now she is adequately equipped with the right skill set to venture into the hierarchy of your organization. And lastly, and most importantly, it will boost employee retention, as this directly reduces female turnover rate, which again is a current industry-wide pain point. Now, obviously, this recommendation is paired with the necessary use cases that have been tested and proven to be highly impactful within different parts of the industry. As you can see, giants just like Microsoft, IBM, and even Accenture have adopted such model and noted a notable impact on skill development of employees, and more importantly, a boost in employee morale, happiness, and motivation by up to 37%. Now that we've established what exactly is a reverse mentorship model, allow us to put Elena and put all of this recommendation a bit into perspective here by walking through Elena's journey at Mackenzie. First, Elena is onboarded and is successfully recruited by the initiatives we've recommended in Pillar 1 of our strategy, and is first introduced to the company culture, her team, and her main role. Next, Elena is matched with her mentor. That mentor is a senior person within her team from an adequate background, predominantly finance, and that person will offer her the necessary support and guidance to make sure she is well equipped with the right mentorship. Next, this is where the reverse mentorship will come into play and act as a two-way learning platform for both the senior personnel and Elena. First, Elena will learn new tools, get advice on managing her work more effectively, and lastly, gain insights into leadership practices, all of which will be highly needed throughout her career at Mackenzie. Now, on the other hand, Elena will also teach her mentor about the new trends, digital tools, and even innovative strategies that are evolving right now, and all of that will create the two-way learning process that will be very vital for company growth. But there's one key question that is still lying ahead. Now that Elena has developed the right skill set, what about her career progression? How exactly are we going to address that pain point? Well, this is where all of what we're proposing will be featured on your existing platform, where Elena will be able to track her existing progress with her mentor, who is Alex in this situation, and this will be done through advanced dashboards, as Elena will be able to, again, track her performance and exchange the learning with her newly assigned mentor via advanced analytics and dashboard to clearly communicate her progression. And more importantly, this platform will act as a communication gateway to make sure that all the learnings are clearly exchanged between Alex, her senior personnel, and Elena, who's the newly recruited female. And all in all, we see that this improves motivation and productivity, which then increases female retention and ultimately breaks the glass ceiling paradox we've already mentioned. And we see that all this translates into a three-way win-win situation for Elena, for the mentor, and for your company. First, for Elena, we see that she will receive the needed tailored advice and mentorship from experienced leaders, as well as have the increased visibility and confidence as a woman to lead the industry forward. Next, for your mentors, it will mean a broader strategic insights. By tapping into Elina's work, they will be able to understand the next generation's values and preferences to guide strategic decisions forward. And more importantly, they will have improved empathy and inclusion, fostering DEI and inclusion of all women in your organization. And more importantly, for your company, this means achieving gender parity. Now, with that being said, Elina?
Well, Alexander, with all that, we reach one final question. How can we ensure that we are tracking measurable success from all of these initiatives?
Yep, let me answer that. So the only way to ensure successful implementation is through continuous feedback. And this is why we recommend to gather data points. From every single initiative or reverse mentorship program that happens, we want both the mentors and the mentees, the applicants and the recruiters to go into that together platform and input their own quantifiable measures to determine whether this was successful or not. And as you can see, these could be quantified through confidence increase, retention rate improvement, advocacy to sponsorship ratio, because we want more of that sponsorship and less of that advocacy. Now, this should steer decision making in the future and help you determine which events and which initiatives are actually successful. Not only that, but this platform will also be available for anyone within the company to actually look into these initiatives. And some parts will even be available for applicants, because we believe that a really important pain point is to show these applicants that McKinsey is actually striving for better employee parity. Now, to tie it all up together, you can see that Elina first attended these live events on campus. Through the previous initiatives and the new add-ons to these initiatives, she'll be exposed to senior leadership from McKinsey. And accordingly, she's recruited. Now, the second step is, once Elina is in there, she'll be benefiting from reverse mentorship and all of these initiatives. She'll be also including her own measures into that together platform to determine how and what the impact of these initiatives are. And finally, she'll grow and mature enough within the company to break that glass ceiling and make it to the leadership position, and potentially be part of McKinsey's leadership team with the first 50% parity. Now, I'll leave it on for my colleague Alex for impact.
Thank you, Ilyas. Now, this sounds great, but let's talk about a bit more about the impact of our strategy. So our strategy is going to be implemented or rolled out throughout the next 5 years through this implementation timeline, and we'll be more than happy to dive into detail in the Q&A section. Moving on, our costs will lead up to around 28.8 million Canadian dollars over the next 5 years, with key strategy cost drivers, including enhancing the McKinsey Together platform to improve the overall assessment. Second, recruitment and training, and finally the actual outreach and development that we mentioned earlier in our attract pillar. And some key assumptions we've taken include the hiring of a part-time Scrum team for over 25 cycles of development to actually improve and enhance that platform. And second of all, the recruitment and outreach budget being an allocation of 25% of our total budget. Moving on, our strategy will lead to a 19% increase in female representation by 2029. And what does that mean, evidently? Well, your company will have over 49% female representation in the investment segment. And key levers being the improvement of the confidence gap that my colleague Ilyas and Elina mentioned earlier, the actual implementation of reverse mentorship, and finally targeted recruitment efforts that we talked about. Now, our strategy will not only efficiently tackle the challenges that we mentioned earlier, but we're also going to have excellent outcomes when it comes to female employee satisfaction, your customer satisfaction, and of course your net promoter score. And we see this through our employee satisfaction index, which is actually derived from key metrics that you have given us in the case, following workload quality and receipt, personal skills and development, work-life balance, and finally the actual promotion rate of your female employees, which all totals to an 8.2 over 10 employee satisfaction. And of course, this translates to customer satisfaction on the end user part, where we see over 80% satisfaction with the high net worth females that we talked about earlier, taking up over 50% of your potential market, and of course a net promoter score of 61%. Now, of course, with every strategy there are some risks, and we've identified the following and their corresponding mitigating plans. The first being economic downturn, which we plan to mitigate through continuous monitoring and evaluation. Second, competitive response through innovate and explore. And finally, regulatory changes through ensuring compliance. And with that being said, we believe that through our strategy, attract, retain, and assess, you will not only be able to achieve the following KPIs by 2029, but cement your position as a leader in women empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin a 10-minute Q&A session.
Oh, sorry.
I'll start. So essentially, I'd like for you just to dive a little bit more in why you think your plan might bring to 49% female representation achieved in the firm with the strategy, and even how did you get to 38% without the strategy?
Absolutely. That's an excellent question. So let's go to our female representation model right here. So initially we know that the overall asset management industry, in terms of female representation, is improving by about 1% every year. This is just a natural growth rate that we've experienced. And we know that your company, McKinsey, is actually already taking a step forward in terms of doing some initiatives. So we believe that without our strategy, your company is naturally improving female representation by about 2% per year, decreasing by the last 2 or 3 years, assuming that nothing changes. With our strategy, we believe that this will improve by 5 and 6%, moving on to the consecutive years, which leads you to about 49% female representation by year 5 of our strategy.
And this sub-question, so this is if we take care of it not very well. McKinsey. So what you're saying is that essentially the fact, you link the fact of taking care of it now, like giving her great professional prospects, would attract more people to be interested by the career.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah, maybe I can add a bit together. Sure. Yeah, so as you've mentioned, we believe that the overall strategy, which tackles both the attract part and the retain part, will eventually get to that 49%. Let me just get to that. Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, first of all, we address the confidence gap, allowing more people to apply to McKinsey in the first place. Second, through the initiatives that we have with the reverse mentorship, we believe that we'll be able to break the glass ceiling and have more people in senior leadership. Now, eventually, by retaining our employees better, we believe this will have a positive impact on the attraction side. This is where the feedback loop comes in. The better you retain employees, the more visibility senior women have in leadership, and then the more people apply. So it's really a feedback loop. With every incremental improvement comes even more improvement and more applicants and a better ratio.
All right. Going a bit earlier into your analysis, where you mentioned that women only apply to jobs where they meet 100% of the criteria, and the other part being where the more specific the criteria is, the more confident they are to apply. My worry with making our recruitment strategy more specific is if it is too specific, then women won't apply because they don't meet 100% of that criteria, because they don't meet that specific thing. So how can we change that? How can we invite women to apply even if they don't meet 100% of the criteria that we're looking for, even if it is a bit more social than behavioral than technical, let's say?
Great question. Now, first of all, with the first part, we believe that through continuous trial and error, we'll be able to determine what the exact level of detail is. Is a sweet spot for applicants, and we'll also have this platform, which is a Together platform, that allows us to get continuous feedback from applicants and recruiters that will allow us to know what exactly is the level of detail that gives us the better chance with female applicants. And as you can see here, this is based on Harvard Business Review. These studies are done on more than 2,000 women, and we can see here that we expect the most successful applicants to have test scores above. Yes, this is detailed, but it increases chances of women applying by 20 percentage points.
Mm-hmm.
So while it might have a negative effect, the net effect is positive. And to answer the second part, which is even if they don't meet 100%, it is these other initiatives where we have senior leadership, women senior leadership, coming on campus to live events and having coffee chats and having, augmenting these events that you already do. We believe that this ongoing discussion will help you even improve your odds, even with women that do not necessarily meet all qualifications. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
And maybe just a quick add-on to showcase a bit more evidence here. There's a main report that has been published 2 months ago that showed the 5 main accelerators for success to make sure that female representation is adequately put in place and thus affecting the attraction model. And one of the key 5 main accelerators was having female representation throughout the recruitment phase, which as my colleague Elias has mentioned, and specifically making these criteria for application a bit more detailed than big.
So you're focusing on reverse mentorship on your strategy, and you've given examples of different companies, I think Microsoft, Accenture, and others. Have you researched some companies in the asset management industry and see if it works?
Yeah. So currently in the asset management industry, there hasn't been a proven record for reverse mentorship. However, there are other industries that are quite complementary when very closely related to assets under management, specifically in finance-related industries. Now, even though they're not highlighted here, our research showed that yes, in finance-related industries, reverse mentorship works. And the beauty of this mentorship program is that it's very agile and light on its feet, meaning that this same mentorship program can be applied irrespective of the industry, as there are not specific constraints related to assets under management, for example, or tech in Microsoft, or let's say auditing and consulting in Accenture. Okay. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I have another one. And I should know because I work there, but we already have the platform, and I assume the biggest cost is the platform development. So I was just a bit surprised that if we have it and we have to adjust it, how come it's the heavy part in production?
Absolutely, sure. So we can go ahead and take a look at the cost breakdown. But mainly what we see here in terms of the platform, in terms of the enhancements, we know that McKinsey currently employs over 1,000 employees. And we understand actually implementing a monitoring system within a platform is extremely extensive, and it needs time and more likely more specific expertise, which comes directly from Scrum team. So we can actually start by looking at how we kind of broke down the costs for the Scrum team themselves. And we see here that a compromise from developers, UX designers, and project managers with average salaries of each following the 25 sprint cycle rule to actually develop some form of monitoring platform like this, we can see that the total cost per sprint for a company at this scale is about $70,000. And when we take into account the total cost of integration and platform, we get over $871,000. Additionally, we like to assume that your current employees are very busy with their work. So we have to hire additional people to actually run that platform or run the monitoring aspect of that platform across the 5 years. And hence that cost takes up the bulk of our expenses.
Good. Thank you.
Just a quick one. I'm trying to find it, but it doesn't matter. When it came to picking our mentors, so I know you mentioned that it would be someone with a finance background. Are there other criteria that you've thought about when it came to picking who would be the mentors within the organization?
Yeah. Now, of course, this criteria will be further, broken down if we have the time. However, we see that overall, key criteria will be first, Elina will be able to fill the preferences on different leadership styles, different fields, and different industry experts to ensure that all of these senior representatives that you have can actually be funneled down to meet Elina's criteria. And next, we see that, more importantly, we'll be able to match her based on their visibility or their presence in the recruitment itself. So let's say Elina was at university, and McKinsey hosted these coffee chats and the other touch points that you've mentioned throughout element 1 of our strategy. Let's say Elina met one of the senior representatives and then worked with him during work. That would ensure that there's adequate connection, and that would be an indirect criteria factored in.
And yeah, to add on that, all of this goes into our platform, and this is why probably the costs are as you may see them, because we really believe the platform should play a major role in consolidating all of these touch points and acting as a matching also platform for mentors and mentees and as continuous feedback loop. So yeah.
Thank you, delegates and judges, for your participation. I will now ask everyone to leave the room so we can start the deliberation period.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.